while everyone was immersed in the New Year's atmosphere. No one knew that the 50-pound bag of rice at home would be exchanged for 4 human lives 3 months later. Mom didn't know either. She was just doing her usual routine before frying meatballs. Checking our New Year's groceries once again, she muttered that we had enough rice for 2 months. And enough flour too, if we used it sparingly. Dad was in the living room putting up spring couplets. Without even turning his head, he said, "Why do we need to save that much? The snow will melt after the New Year." Mom rolled her eyes at him. "What if the snow doesn't melt after the New Year?" Dad laughed and called her a jinx. My younger brother chimed in, calling Mom the prophet of the family. They all laughed. And I laughed too. At that time, no one knew this joke would become reality. By the 7th day of the snowfall, the TV started broadcasting a red blizzard warning continuously. According to the Meteorological Bureau, the blizzard would last for a month, with snow depth reaching up to 40 centimeters. The public was urged to avoid going out, and the government had arranged snow clearing operations. Dad stood by the window and smoked half a pack of cigarettes. He turned around and said, "The weather is bad. We need to start rationing our food." Mom replaced the lock on the basement door with a new one. That night for dinner, each of us only had 1 bowl of porridge with just a small dish of pickles on the side. My brother licked the bottom of his bowl clean. Mom saw it but didn't say a word. She just scooped another half-spoonful for him. On the 13th day, the water was cut off. Dad and my brother shoveled snow at the door, melting it to use as water. An iron pot sat on the gas stove. As the snow melted into water, there was dirt in it. A dark, murky layer. Mom used a cheesecloth to filter it 3 times, boiled it, and gave it to us to drink. My brother said it tasted a bit like dirt. Dad said we should be grateful we had anything to drink at all. On the 21st day, the power went out. Mom took all the perishables she could move out to the balcony, covering them with cotton quilts. At night, it was over -10 degrees outside. The balcony worked better than a refrigerator. The next morning, the meat was frozen as hard as a rock. Dad said God was helping us save money. We wouldn't have to pay the electricity bill next month. But Mom didn't laugh. On the 29th day, the supermarket was looted. That night we heard the commotion. We leaned against the window to watch. A crowd rushed into the supermarket, coming out carrying bags of rice, flour, and oil. Some were brawling in the snow. Others were running with blood pouring from their heads. Dad pulled the curtains shut, telling us to open the windows less from now on, and not to go outside. A month passed. The blizzard still hadn't stopped. Mom counted the rice and flour in the basement over and over. 50 pounds of rice, 40 pounds of flour, 20 pounds of noodles, 10 pounds of millet, 5 pounds of mung beans, along with 3 boxes of instant noodles, 2 boxes of sausages, 8 cans of milk powder, 6 bags of salt, and 4 bottles of cooking oil. She said, "If we are careful, it's enough for 3 months." Dad said the snow would stop in 3 months. Mom smiled upon hearing that and said, "Right. The snow will stop in 3 months." On the 43rd day, the first gunshot rang out from downstairs. Our whole family squatted beneath the window. No one dared to make a sound. After the gunshot, there were screams. And after the screams, a dead silence. No one slept that night. I could hear my brother trembling under his blanket, the bedboards creaking. On the 57th day, a neighbor knocked on our door. It was Uncle Wang, the one who used to play chess with Dad. He was so thin he looked like a different person, his eyes sunken in, When he knocked, his whole body leaned against the doorframe. He spoke weakly, "Old Zhang. Do you have any food at home? Spare me a little. My daughter, she's dying." Dad looked at him through the peephole for a long time. Mom stood behind him. Her lips pursed until they were pale. She didn't speak. After a long while, Dad opened the door and handed him a pack of instant noodles. Uncle Wang took it, and tears immediately streamed down his face. He said, "Old Zhang, you are a good man. You are a good man." When he left, his legs were shaking. He leaned on a stick, shuffling step by step. Mom closed the door, leaning against it for a long time. She said, "His daughter is only 6 years old. She just started elementary school this year." Dad didn't say anything. That night, Mom threw an extra handful of rice into the pot. On the 69th day, the heating stopped. The house was as cold as an icebox. We dragged out all the blankets we had. The whole family squeezed into one bed, using our body heat to keep each other warm. My brother was shivering next to me. I tucked his feet into my coat. They were so cold, I gasped. He said, "Sis, your hands are so warm." I told him, "Don't talk. Save your energy." On the 73rd day, Dad started to get a fever. He was fine during the day, but suddenly burned up at night. He became delirious from the fever. Mom dissolved fever medicine in water and forced him to drink it. In his delirium, Dad kept yelling, "Old Zhang, stop right there. That's mine." Mom covered his mouth, her tears falling. My brother hid in my arms, too scared to look. On the 74th day, Dad's fever broke. He had lost more than 10 pounds. His eye sockets sunken, his cheekbones jutting out. The first thing he asked when he woke up was, "How much food do we have left?" "Enough for half a month." "Don't worry," he forced himself to sit up, staring out the window. The snow was still falling. Between heaven and earth, there was only a vast whiteness. It was as if the whole world had become a void. "It's not enough. I have to go out and find food." Mom tried to stop him, but Dad said, "If we don't go out, we'll just die here at home." On the 75th day, Dad and my brother went out. They wrapped bedsheets tightly around themselves, carrying a kitchen knife and a steel pipe. Before leaving, my brother looked back at me, smiled and said, "Sis, wait for me to come back." I watched their silhouettes disappear into the snow. 2 hours later, they returned. They brought back half a sack of cabbages frozen like rocks, and a plastic bag of high-energy biscuits they found who knows where. Dad said they were lucky. They found a small convenience store that hadn't been completely wiped out. My brother winked at me. That night, we had a meal of boiled cabbage. The cabbage leaves were boiled until they were mushy. 1 bowl per person, and we drank every last drop of the broth. It was the most fulfilling meal we'd had in days. Mom asked when these days would ever end. Dad said, "Soon, soon." Then came the 79th day. I remember it clearly, because it was my mom's birthday. I didn't say it, I didn't dare to. I was afraid it would bring bad luck. That group of people came in the afternoon. 5 of them, all men. The leader was holding a machete. When they started smashing the door, I was in the basement organizing the food. I heard a loud thud from above, and then another heavy blow. By the time I ran upstairs, The door was already cracked open. Dad and my brother were holding the door, pushing with their shoulders, using every ounce of their strength to resist. Dad's face was flushed bright red, the veins on his neck bulging out. He shouted at me, "Go down. Hide the food." I froze. Mom gave me a hard push. I ran back into the basement. But there was so much food. Where could I hide it? Where? I was spinning around in a panic. Finally, I piled the rice and flour into a corner, covering them with rags and torn cotton. Then I crouched there, holding my head, listening to the noise above. Thump. Thump. The door broke open. I heard Dad yell, "Get out!" Then came the sound of something smashing into the ground, dull and heavy. And then, Mom's scream, and my brother's roar. I stood up, my legs so weak I could barely stand. I leaned against the wall and walked up. Halfway up the stairs, I saw Mom. She was standing in front of me, her back to me. I couldn't see her face, but I could see the knife. The blade had pierced right through her chest, the tip sticking out from her back, dripping with red and dark blood. Mom moved a little, trying to turn back to look at me, but she couldn't. Her body went limp, and she collapsed. I didn't scream. It felt like something was choking my throat, and I couldn't make a single sound. The moment Mom's body hit the floor, I saw that man. He was holding the knife, blood still dripping from it. He looked down at my mom, his expression blank. He hadn't expected this to happen. He might have just come to rob our food. He didn't mean to kill anyone. But Mom was dead. When I lunged at him, I wasn't thinking about anything. My brother charged at him too. The two of us together. He grabbed the knife, I pushed the man. In the chaos, I didn't know whose hand grabbed the handle and drove the knife back in. When that man fell down, his eyes were still open, staring at me. His mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. Blood sprayed all over me. It was warm. I stood there, trembling uncontrollably. My brother was panting heavily next to me, panting like a broken bellows. He looked down at the two bodies on the floor. One was my mom, and the other was the man who killed her. He said, "Sis?" I said, "Let's carry Mom into the room." We lifted Mom. She was so light, as light as a pile of bones. I held her head. My brother carried her feet. When we laid her on the bed, her eyes were closed, her face expressionless, like she was just sleeping. My brother stood beside the bed, his shoulders heaving up and down. He didn't cry out loud, but I knew he was crying. I said, "You still have Dad and me. Don't be afraid." Dad was at the door. He leaned against the frame, clutching his arm. The rest of the group had run away, dragging the dead one's body with them. Dad didn't chase them. He had no strength left. I saw blood on his arm. He said, "I'm fine, just a scratch." While I was bandaging him, his hands were shaking. Not because of the pain, but because of something else. He kept staring in the direction of the bedroom, looking at where Mom lay. He didn't say a single word, just stared. That night, the three of us sat by Mom's bed. None of us slept. On the 83rd day, Dad's arm rotted. The wound got infected, inflamed. Pus formed. He had a fever. Worse than the last time. The fever medicine Mom left was long gone. The antibiotics were gone too. We had absolutely no medicine. He lay in bed, delirious from the fever, calling Mom's name. My brother was frantic, ransacking the whole house, and finally found half a bottle of liquor. We used the liquor to wipe his body down, wiped him over and over again. His temperature dropped a little, then spiked right back up. I can't remember those few days clearly. I only remember Dad lying there, burning up constantly. When he occasionally woke up in a lucid state, he would urge us to go out and find food. He said he couldn't die. If he died, that would be it. Your mom is gone. I have to watch over you two. How much food is left? I didn't dare tell him the truth. There wasn't much food left. That 50-pound bag of rice only had crumbs at the bottom. The flour had been eaten up long ago. The noodles were gone too. All we had left was a little millet, a few packs of high-energy biscuits, and half a bottle of oil. But I said, "Don't worry, there's enough. You just focus on getting better." He believed it. On the 87th day, Dad was able to get out of bed. He was so thin he was practically just a skeleton. He had to hold onto the wall to walk. But he still forced himself up, dug out that kitchen knife, and started sharpening it on a whetstone. The sound of the knife scraping against the stone. Screech. Screech, it sent chills down my spine. My brother asked him what he was doing. He said he was going out to find food. Neither my brother nor I would let him go like that. Going out was suicide, but Dad, he said, "If I don't go, we're all going to die anyway. Your mom is gone. I have to watch over you two. I have to keep you alive." On the 90th day, Dad and my brother went out again. I watched them walk away. Dad walked very slowly, having to rest after just a few steps. My brother supported him beside him. The two of them slowly disappeared into the snow. They were gone for a long time. Just as it was getting dark, my brother came back. Alone, he ran back, gasping for breath. As soon as he entered, he collapsed on the floor. I helped him up. He was covered in blood. His eyes were wide open, his pupils darting around, looking everywhere. I asked, "Where is Dad?" He couldn't speak. He just trembled. I held him, waiting for the shaking to stop. He trembled for a long time, and finally managed to speak. We ran into people. 4 of them, holding steel rebars. Dad told me to run first. I said, "So you left?" He nodded. I asked, "What about Dad?" He didn't say a word. He started pulling things out of his coat. 1 pack, 2 packs. 3 packs of high-energy biscuits. 3 packs. With trembling hands, he placed the biscuits on the floor. He looked at me. "Sis." The biscuits, I stared at those 3 packs. Then looked at him. Where did all the blood on his body come from? I turned him around and saw his back. There were several gashes on his back. His padded coat was torn apart, the cotton inside spilling out, mixed with red and white. Looking further down, there were wounds on his waist, and his stomach too. I yanked his coat open completely. His stomach was covered in stab wounds. 1 strike. 2 strikes. 3, some were deep, some shallow. Blood was still pouring out. gushing all over his body. I couldn't count how many stab wounds there were. I only saw those gaping cuts, like the mouths of screaming children, split open and spewing out his life. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Why didn't you tell me? I shrieked. He looked down at his own stomach, as if he had just noticed it himself. Then he looked up and smiled at me. Sis. I went crazy tearing through cabinets and drawers. Medicine, medicine. Is there any medicine left in the house? I found half a bottle of rubbing alcohol, a little piece of gauze, and a roll of tape. But what good were they? Those wounds were so deep, so long. When I poured the alcohol on them, he convulsed in pain, but the blood kept gushing out. I couldn't stop it. I held him, trying to plug it with gauze, plug it with cotton coats, plug it with my bare hands, but I couldn't. Blood slipped through my fingers, hot and sticky, flowing down my wrists. Sis, stop, he said, but I didn't listen. I kept pressing. I pressed the gauze hard against his stomach, pressing as hard as I could, but the blood kept seeping through. The gauze was soaked through in seconds. Sis, hold me. I held him in my arms. His body was getting colder and colder. I could feel him going stiff bit by bit, getting lighter bit by bit. His head rested on my shoulder, his breathing getting shallower, slower. Sis, eat the biscuits. Sis, don't blame me for leaving you behind. I didn't speak. I just hugged him tighter. Sis, live well. Sis, in the next life. He stopped there. I waited for a moment, but the rest of his sentence never came. I turned my head to look at his face. His eyes were still open, looking at me, but the light in them was gone. There was nothing left. He was still so young, 15 years old, with baby fat still on his cheeks, fine fuzz just starting to grow on his upper lip. He hadn't even grown up yet. And he just died like this. For 3 packs of biscuits. I sat there holding him for a long time. So long that the sky went completely dark. I covered Mom and him with a quilt, tucked it in tightly. Then I went out. The snowy ground was so bright, the moonlight reflecting off the snow. Everything was white. I followed the trail my brother had left coming back. After walking for a while, I saw Dad. He was lying face down in the snow, his body already rigid. He was covered in puncture wounds, pierced by steel rebars. His face was turned toward the direction of our home, his eyes wide open, his mouth open as if he had words left unsaid. I turned him over and picked him up. He was even lighter than Mom. When Mom died, she at least still had some flesh on her. Dad was nothing but skin and bones. I carried him and walked back. I walked for a long time, until dawn broke. Before I reached home, I laid him on the bed too, right next to Mom, next to my brother, our family of 3 lying neatly together. I sat on the floor by the bed, looking at them. As the day broke, the sunlight shone in. It fell on their faces. The ice on them began to melt, turning into water that trickled down their cheeks. Like they were crying, the sunlight grew brighter. I squinted my eyes, looking out the window at that blindingly white world. The snow had stopped, the sun was out. But what about all the suffering we went through? What about the people who had died? I kept looking, and suddenly I laughed. I didn't blame God. Blaming God is useless. God doesn't care whether humans live or die. He only cares about letting it snow, letting the sun come out, letting those who are meant to die, die, and those who survive, survive. But I refuse to accept it. Why should I accept it? I stood up and walked to the window. The snow had stopped, the sun was out. The world was alive again. What if I could go back? I suddenly thought of the apocalyptic novels I had read. If you die, you can be reborn. Go back to the very beginning when everything started. I would stockpile supplies, build a safe house. I would get my revenge. I would protect my family. I climbed onto the windowsill. The wind was strong, blowing my hair back. Someone downstairs was shouting something. I couldn't hear clearly. Maybe they were telling me not to jump. Maybe they were crying for help. Or maybe they weren't shouting at all. And it was just the sound of the wind in my ears. I spread my arms wide. Mom, brother, Dad. I'm coming. I closed my eyes and took a step forward. The moment my body plummeted down, I heard my own heartbeat. Thump, 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 thump. And then, a tearing pain. Pain that sent my whole body into spasms. Pain so intense I couldn't make a sound. Everything went black before my eyes. I couldn't see anything. I thought, it's over. What if I can't be reborn? What if I really just died like this? Then who will protect them? I tried desperately to open my eyes. But I couldn't. Tried desperately to move. But I couldn't. My body felt lighter and lighter. Lighter and lighter. Like I was floating up. And then, for a split second, everything ceased to exist. I opened my eyes. White walls, white ceiling. White curtains. Fluttering in the wind. There were sounds outside. The sizzling sound of frying meatballs. Like something was deep frying in an oil pan. An aroma wafted in. The smell of meat, the familiar smell of meat. The smell of frying meatballs. Someone was talking. A man's voice. Look at how you pasted this for character. It's crooked, then came a younger voice. How is it crooked? It's perfectly straight. Mom shook her head and went back to the kitchen. I was in the hallway. I stood in the hallway, listening to these sounds. The sizzling of the frying meatballs. The sound of my brother and dad bickering. The sound of Mom humming a song in the kitchen. It was still snowing. Through the window, I could see fine snowflakes drifting down outside. They hadn't piled up yet.